Hello. Hi, P.
Hello.
See if we get a see a
Oh,
reference.
that's nice.
Is
Yeah,
that
that's
better?
yeah, I think
See
so.
if
We
we
can
get
see a
something.
little bit more of us.
This Penguin. That's Penguilson. Penguilson is from old Kyoto. He's very traditional.
Yes, she
Actually,
is.
she's very
She.
traditional, and she's very bossy. So in fact, she's actually shoved a few people in her time. She
Okay.
used to shove. Remember, she used to.
But she
Yeah.
actually drinks tea to calm herself down.
Yes.
Yes.
Say
Okay.
hello, Penguilson. Okay.
Oh, I have an arrow on my
Oh,
forehead.
okay. Good.
Thank you.
All right. So this is a
Okay.
preview for episode 72, Intellect and Execution. And want to just say thank you again to the nice people at Tease Tea. And kind of like,
Also, one of the few rare mints that I managed to
yes,
find
yes,
in
yes.
Manhattan.
All right. So
Oh.
basically, this is a series of ruminations we do once a week. We do a preview on Wednesday, and then we do our program on Sunday morning. And someone asked, why do you do a program at 2 o'clock on the Sunday morning? And basically, at 2 o'clock on the Sunday morning, for the most part, everyone, the hours of 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and 6 o'clock, when there's the few hours that people are sleeping, happen to be happening over the Atlantic Ocean. So, we probably are prohibiting people who are on the Queen Mary floating either to England or back. But
Oh,
for the
wow.
most part, most of the other people that we know, aside from the people on the International Space Station or, on Artemis 2, and they'll be back next week,
Yeah.
are here
It's
on
a
land.
10-day
It's a
mission.
10-day mission, yeah. And I'm so happy to see that we're finally back in space beyond low Earth orbit.
It's glorious.
It's incredibly exciting. And in
Certainly
fact,
about time.
Congratulations to this crew of 4 people, and Christine Koch's on this mission.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
I
great.
love her.
Oh, she's
Anyway, so
wonderful.
there's 3 Americans and one guy from Canada who I think he's a stowaway. But
Or at least he'll be a polite stowaway.
yeah, it probably will be. Yeah.
Okay.
And but anyway, like they're actually the other day they went beyond the distance that Apollo 13 had traveled. So they actually were the furthest humans out from the Earth ever. So it's a small step. It's going to get us back to the moon and then further than that. And again, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago in the fact that the dreams I had at 10 years old, which I thought I would kind of see in my lifetime, are now at the exact same distance as they were when I was 10 years old, 57 years later, which doesn't bode well. And it's kind of something that's incredibly unnerving and unsettling. But anyway, enough said.
Yeah, I think we should get to our
So
topic,
intellect
Pete.
and execution.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a kind of like it sandwiches between the idea of tolerance. And let me read something from, again, one of my favorite books. Actually, this is I love reading Voltaire. Voltaire is a great writer. And this is from Treatise on Tolerance.
He also had a body, clever, mischievous.
He did.
Sense
I love that
sense
about
of
him.
humor.
Honestly, I think I would have loved to.
May I make a
Yes,
quick
say,
comment?
say.
I would compare Voltaire character-wise, not intellection-wise, to Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Very mischievous. Yes. Okay.
Well, and kind of like a Sherlock Holmes in a way too, because he had Sherlock Holmes had a kind of puckish, roguish, kind of puckish sense,
and a really dark side.
Yeah, well, if you're Voltaire had a dark side as well.
Oh, he was.
He kind of loved that. I think one of the things we talked about is the fact that one of the things that shows a person's resilience is how well they stand up to sarcasm. And sarcasm and humor are a great test of the character. So, the abuse of intolerance, chapter 11. But will every citizen then be allowed to believe that their own unaided reason and to think whatever their own reason idles them, whether it is enlightened or misguided? Yes, that should be followed and allowed on condition that it does not disturb public order, because free people are not obliged to believe or not believe certain things, but are obliged to respect the customs of their own will. So I think that's the case, is the fact that like somewhere between these kind of and these aren't oppositions. I wouldn't say that the copyist and the draftsman or the plagiarist, any of these terms that we brought up, like specialist and speculist, they're basically terms that exist within a continuum. They're not really opposites. Here we're talking about intellect and execution. It's more natures of the character, in terms of things. But I would say that that's kind of where we stand in the fact that tolerance is what allows the balance between them. All right. So anyway, go ahead, Pete.
Oh, thank you. I have a different take.
Hmm.
Yep.
What a surprise!
Yeah.
See, everyone kind of thinks that we kind of like, but we really do
Yeah.
appreciate that idea of kind of like, kind of like
Well,
having
we
these
play off
discussions.
each other in a very
Exactly.
interesting and
Yes.
profound way. So my take on intellect and execution, it's all about process. And we are both very process driven. So two really great examples that I'll be talking about on, I call it Saturday night, Bruce calls it Sunday morning, but you know,
Yeah.
you say
6, 7,
tomato,
okay.
I say
That's
tomato.
what the kids say, 6, 7.
Yes. I say sun-dried tomato.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, is when somebody uses a process in a very unique and dexterous way to get to the manifestation of their work or the execution of their work. So, a great example of this is Gabrielle Munter, and there is an excellent exhibition at the Guggenheim here in New York City, which I'd like to mention. I was there again today, and greetings to our 2 new subscribers from the Guggenheim.
And all our friends at the
and
Guggenheim.
all of our friends at the Guggenheim. Gabrielle Munter's on till April 26th. I urge everyone to run and see it on floors 4 and 5.
But not with scissors.
Yes, do not run with scissors. They're very sharp. You could get hurt. Anyway, Gabrielle Munter, was an extraordinary painter who was able to abstract relatively common objects, people, and places from everyday life in a very otherworldly and surreal, existentially terrifying way, in really fauvist tones. She had a color palette that was very, very saturated, and a mind that was incredibly nimble, acrobatic, and inquisitive. We can hear birds at night. Interesting.
Could be the homeless.
Great. She used a camera, not as a photographer might, as an intellectual tool, as a scientist might use a microscope, as a surgeon might use a scalpel. Placed the camera at some very odd vantage points instead of looking through the viewfinder in the model camera. I'll get into it on Saturday that she used, and I have all of that. What she ended up with were a recasting of a still life as a landscape, a recasting of a portrait as a still life, a recasting of a landscape as a portrait, meaning she basically turned the known and accepted types of painting of her day on their heads.
Interesting. Yeah. Given what we've said in the past about perspective, right, and not just simply talking about a point of view, but talking about the fact that a significant point of view is possibly the thing that we're looking for in order to express novel utility. We're going to have a program, I think it's in August, where we talked about activities and utility. But I mean, I think this idea that trying to find that point of view, that perspective that allows a deeper understanding or to kind of like to reveal new information is not as simple as one would expect. So that would this would be an interesting exhibit to look at from that point of view. So I think that in that regard, that kind of like gives us an idea, kind of like some of the things that we'll be kind of thinking about. But I believe that one of the key things is the idea that in order for us to have the maximum utility, it depends on the idea of the balance of the individuals and the tolerance of that within the community, because the idea is like, Voltaire said, to have it where it doesn't upset the public order. And I think that's the kind of situation that we kind of look at, is that what is that to do? And I think in a liberal, enlightened society, you want that to be as broad and as deep and as complex as it can possibly be, unlike today. So that's kind of something that might be an interesting point to kind of take upon.
Very, very well observed.
Thank you.
Here's something very interesting. Bruce has
I have
cheese
green
tea
tea.
green.
Right.
I have one of those rare cheese tea mints, which I absolutely love.
I love mint.
Yeah, I got it at one of the 2 places in Manhattan that actually carries
We're
it.
gonna have to shuffle the deck, because the reality is, with Rose disappearing.
Yeah, it's really sad. Anyway.
I mean, I don't know if Rose was your favorite. It certainly was my favorite. But I mean, mint, I think, is my second.
It was great. Anyway, what I wanted
Say.
to say is the intellectual process, specifically in botany or plant science, same holds true for mycology. There are a lot of theories and a lot of hypotheses, because a lot of plants and fungi exist in how should I say, very out of the way places. The extremophiles obviously are very hard to find. They're in extreme Arctic climates, extremely hot climates by the heat vents, in the rainforest. So there are hard to find specimens. So there is a lot of hypothesizing going on in plant science and mycology specifically. And then once a person finds a specimen that's been there for hundreds or thousands of years, it is an aha kind of a moment that doesn't happen all that much. Here's something I found today, and it was just glorious. I have to mention, I'll get more into it. Walking in Central Park, I found a hybrid of a pansy and a violet. And I looked it up, and sure enough, pansies came from the violet family. They both share common roots, pun intended. And what happens is, when they grow in the wild, they hybridize themselves. So I found a pansy, a whole batch of them.
Nice.
And I have photos which hybridize with the violet.
Awesome. All right. So lastly, I would say is that, like, one of the things I think we remember, if we remember back to what Whitehead said in Aims of Education, is that the greatest bore and the most inertial thing one can come across is someone who basically is filled with knowledge but has no way to apply it. So I think that since the intellect can itself be in its own inertial abutment if it doesn't understand the way in which it uses it in order to kind of gain understanding. So with that said, the realm of ideas is free to all, and it's to benefit all for it to have us keep it just that way.
Process.
Pangolson.
Yes.